Nolan was once the most feared dragon in the world, but after being betrayed by those he considered allies, his long existence came to a tragic end. The story begins with the human army surrounding him, their so-called hero binding the mighty dragon in chains. Helpless before them, Dolan looked on as the blade of the hero was mercilessly driven into his heart. He could not understand why the humans would suddenly turn against him. After all, he remembered standing alongside them as their ally. Even then, Dolan refrained from fighting back. He still considered them friends, and only asked to be spared from such cruel treatment. The lonely dragon, who had lived for countless years, no longer desired to battle these insignificant creatures. And so, he offered little resistance, calmly accepting his fate. As his body crumbled away, Dolan broke free from his shackles, turned his gaze toward the sky, and begged the gods for eternal peace. But the gods had other plans. Instead of sending his soul to the underworld, they cast him into the cycle of life and death once again, reincarnating him as a newborn human baby. When Dolan first opened his eyes, he found himself in the arms of an ordinary man and woman. The woman, overjoyed to see her child's eyes open, named him Dolan. She introduced herself as his mother, the man beside her as his father, and mentioned that he also had an older brother. From their joyful faces, Dolan assumed he had been reborn into a happy family. Time passed, and Dolan grew into a tall young swordsman. He found comfort in the peaceful rhythm of village life, far removed from the endless battles of his past. One evening, as he admired the sunset, a girl named Ari came running up to him. He looked at her, then at the calm village beyond, and felt a deep sense of contentment. Ari noticed his faint smile and asked if something was troubling him. He assured her that everything was fine, and together they walked back toward the village. Dolan lived in a small settlement called Varen, situated on the northern border of the continental kingdom of Arrest. After his death as a dragon, this was where he was reborn as a human, and here he had lived ever since. The only industry was agriculture, so, like everyone else, Dolan worked as a farmer. Each morning, he woke to the sunlight streaming through his window, then went out to the fields. Farming provided him with food and water in abundance, and he had no complaints about the life he now led. At lunch, he often ate alone, a simple meal of bread and soup, before heading back into the village. In this world, 15 marked the age of adulthood, and Dolan had passed that milestone a year ago. As such, he had left his parents' home to live independently. Even so, he remained close to his family, and often visited his older brother, who sometimes accompanied him to the nearby forest for fishing. One day, Dolan's older brother reminded him that he would have to investigate the swamp near their village. Concerned, Dolan explained why this task was important. For the past month, the lizards that once lived in the swamp had disappeared, and their absence might disrupt the entire ecosystem around it. His brother told him it was too dangerous to go alone, and that the job had originally been assigned to the garrison. But since the captain and the other soldiers were busy protecting the village, Dolan had volunteered to help the elders. His brother offered to accompany him, worried for his safety. Dolan refused, not wanting to trouble him. At 16 years old, he insisted he was grown and could handle himself. He promised that he was only going to inspect the swamp and nothing more. That day, Dolan went fishing with his brother. By the time he was done, he had caught a full bucket of large fish. On his way back, he ran into his two friends, Melita and Albert, who were amazed at the amount he had caught on his own. Melita scolded him, asking why he had wasted time fishing instead of preparing for the investigation. Dolan explained that he had been preparing little by little over the past several days and assured her that he would be fine. He also thanked her for persuading the village chief and the elders to let him take the task in the first place. Melita returned the thanks, saying he was the one who had always helped with her and Albert's training. Before leaving, Dolan asked if the two of them would be heading out again soon. Melita confirmed, explaining that they had a meeting about the next training session for the younger children and would be away from the village for some time. Albert told Dolan not to worry about them and advised him to focus on his own investigation. After parting ways, Dolan returned home. He gutted one of the fish and seasoned it heavily with salt. While preparing it, he explained that the monsters around the village were known as bandits. Since Varen was a far-side village, there weren't enough soldiers to protect the people, so the villagers had to look out for one another. Once the fish was prepared, Dolan laid the pieces out in the sun to dry. At that moment, Ari appeared at his door. She reminded him that today was his magic practice day. When Dolan asked if she had come only to fetch him, she claimed she had simply been passing by. Regardless, Dolan followed her and went to his grandmother's house for training. In front of his grandmother Magaru and Ari, Dolan began his practice. He demonstrated the way magic worked in their world, reciting a basic spell. Laws of power, hear my voice. Become an arrow and pierce my foe. With that, he shouted, Energy bolt, and a concentrated blast of energy shot forward, striking the wooden dummy and shattering it into pieces. Grandma Magaru was impressed, as always, with Dolan's offensive magic. She praised him for mastering the fundamentals so well. Dolan humbly gave her the credit, saying his progress was only thanks to her teachings. With offensive magic training completed, Lady Magaru shifted his focus to magical medicine. Unlike attack spells, this was something Dolan struggled with. He spent hours studying herbs and formulas under her guidance, though progress came slowly. That evening, Dolan met a strikingly beautiful woman he had never seen before. The village chief introduced her as Christina, a young noble lady who would be staying in the village for the next few days. Dolan greeted her politely, and as they shook hands, he immediately sensed that she was someone powerful and skilled. Later that night, Dolan joined his parents for dinner. There, it was revealed that he also had a younger brother named Marco. As they ate, Dolan's father brought up the idea of him finding a wife, pointing out how lonely he had seemed lately. Dolan replied that he wished to remain single for now, and his father respected his decision, reminding him that he was free to choose his own path as an adult. The conversation shifted when Marco mentioned the upcoming swamp investigation. Both of Dolan's parents grew worried, but Dolan reassured them. He promised that everything would be fine, and that he would return with a story worth telling. The next morning, the captain of the village offered to accompany Dolan, but Melita stopped him, reminding him that he had other duties to attend to. The villagers instead gave Dolan their blessings, wishing him safety. Grandma Magaru arrived as well, warning him that her fortune-telling showed signs of danger ahead. She urged him to be cautious. Just as Dolan prepared to set out, Ari appeared and handed him a lunchbox, asking him to eat it along the way. He thanked everyone for their kindness before beginning his journey. Dolan set out on foot, walking the long road to the swamp. He stopped several times to drink water and rest, reflecting on the reason behind this investigation. The disappearance of the lizards hadn't directly harmed the village, but it felt wrong to him. The creatures had always been a natural part of the area, and their sudden absence unsettled him. That was why he had volunteered to look into it himself. When he finally reached the swamp, Dolan placed his hand on the ground and quickly understood the cause. The elemental balance had shifted. The power of earth had grown too strong, while the power of water had weakened. This imbalance had driven the lizards away. Remembering his grandmother's fortune-telling, Dolan grew uneasy. Her readings were rarely wrong, and he suspected that something or someone had deliberately caused this change. At that moment, he sensed a powerful presence nearby. Instantly, he drew his sword, In a swamp like this, only strong monsters could remain. A figure emerged, a lamia, half human and half snake. Dolan observed her movements and noticed she had little combat experience, flailing her arms clumsily. Before he could misjudge and attack, she made it clear she had no intention of fighting him. But then the ground shook. A massive earth elemental rose from the swamp and immediately attacked the lamia. Dolan reacted quickly, slashing its hand to protect her. He pulled her with him behind a giant mushroom for cover, explaining that the elemental had appeared for the same reason the lizards had left: the elemental balance. Dolan introduced himself, and the lamia gave her name, Selena. Learning that she could use magic, Dolan suggested they fight the monster together. At first, Selena hesitated. She had just met him and was wary of trusting a human. But Dolan's presence carried such strength that she finally agreed. The battle began. Dolan deflected the elemental strikes with his sword while Selena summoned her magic. A colossal spectral snake appeared, coiling around the elemental and holding it down. Using this opening, Dolan closed the distance in a flash. Channeling draconic power into his blade, he struck cleanly, cutting through the monster and bringing it down. The earth reabsorbed the creature's remains, splashing mud across Selena in the process. With the fight over, Dolan finally had the chance to speak with her properly. That night, Dolan set up camp near the swamp and shared it with Selena. She was relieved to meet a human who wasn't afraid of her appearance. Having once been the most feared dragon in the world, Dolan had encountered far stranger beings, and nothing seemed to faze him. As they rested, Selena explained the reason she had come to the swamp. She had just turned 17, the age at which lamias were considered adults, and she was searching for a husband. Lamias required strong partners, since ordinary men could not survive their venom. She gave Dolan subtle hints that he would make a suitable choice, even suggesting they should marry and have children. Dolan, however, showed no interest in the idea. Instead, he focused on preparing a meal. Using his mother's recipe, he cooked a stew from the fish he had caught earlier. When he served it to Selena, she was overwhelmed by its flavor, clearly unused to such food. As Dolan spoke fondly of his mother, Selena asked if he loved his family. He confirmed it without hesitation, recalling the lonely dragon he had once been and how different his life felt now. By morning, Dolan prepared to leave. He wished Selena well in her search for a partner. As a parting gesture, he shared a portion of his life energy with her. But even a small amount was too much for Selena, since Dolan's essence still carried the power of a dragon. As the sun rose, Dolan paused to admire its beauty for a moment. He said goodbye, telling Selena she was welcome to visit his home anytime. Then he turned and continued on his path.